The full moon hung heavy in the sky, its pale light casting long shadows over the hills of Locket Hill Cemetery. I'd heard the stories about this place for years, whispers and hushed voices, the kind of rumors that spread like wildfire in small towns, where every dark corner and forgotten path has its own tale to tell. Locket Hill was a place of mystery, a place that called out to the curious, the daring, and the foolhardy. It was a kind of place people spoke of in fear, a cemetery shrouded in the midst of old legends and eerie happenings. They called them the Locket Lights, those strange, glowing orbs that appeared in the graveyard every full moon. Some said they were the souls of the departed, others insisted they were spirits of the lost, and a few even swore the lights were something far more sinister. But I wasn't one to be intimidated by a few ghost stories. I had come here for answers, equipped with my camera and a heart full of skepticism. I didn't believe in ghosts, in restless spirits, or cursed places. No, I believed in evidence. The Locket Lights had become a legend, a story too tantalizing to ignore. There had to be a reason why people had kept coming back to this place, why they couldn't shake the fear that clung to it like a second skin. It was a cold night when I ventured into the cemetery. The air was thick with fog, and the trees seemed to whisper as the wind rustled their branches. I stepped carefully over the uneven ground, the sound of my boots crunching against the dry leaves filling the otherwise silent night. The cemetery was as I expected, ancient and decaying. Crooked headstones jutted out of the earth, some half-sunken, others barely legible. The scent of damp earth and mildew lingered in the air, but there was something else too, a heaviness, a weight that seemed to press down on me the deeper I ventured. The Locket Lights had been the talk of the town for as long as I could remember, and it seemed like every person I asked had their own version of the story. Some said the lights were the spirits of villagers who had perished in a tragic fire, their souls trapped between worlds. Others told tales of forbidden rituals, of cursed bloodlines and ancient pacts. But whatever the truth was, I wasn't here to chase ghosts. I was here to uncover the facts. I had come with the intention of capturing the lights, documenting them for all to see. And then, just as the moon reached its peak, it happened. The first light flickered into existence, just above the gravestones in the far corner of the cemetery. I froze. It was small at first, a faint glow that looked almost like a will-o'-the-wisp. My camera, already in hand, clicked to life, and I quickly snapped a few shots, adjusting the focus to capture the light as it swayed in the night air. The light drifted slowly, almost as if it had noticed me. And for a moment, I felt like I was being beckoned. Despite myself, I began to follow it, my feet moving before I could stop them. The fog seemed to grow thicker as I moved, and the air turned colder, biting into my skin. The lights floated just above the ground, shimmering in the dark like faint stars. They moved as if alive, twisting and turning in slow, deliberate patterns. They were beautiful in a way, hypnotic, drawing me in deeper into the cemetery. But then, without warning, the lights disappeared. I stopped in my tracks, confusion setting in as the graveyard was swallowed by darkness. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, a deep unease creeping over me. The cemetery, now completely silent, felt like it was holding its breath. I turned in circles, my heart pounding in my chest. Where had they gone? And then, just as suddenly as they vanished, the lights returned. But this time they were different. The glow was brighter, colder, and they swirled around me, flickering like fireflies in a storm. It was no longer beautiful. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy, and I could feel a coldness creeping into my bones. I tried to move, but my legs felt like they were made of stone, frozen in place by the light's grip. The whispers started then. At first, they were faint, like the wind moving through the trees, but they grew louder, clearer, a cacophony of voices, murmuring in a language I couldn't understand, their words twisted and ancient. My heart raced as I realized the voices weren't just whispers in the wind. They were coming from the graves, from the very earth beneath me. The cemetery felt alive with the voices of the past, calling out from beyond the grave, their anguished cries mingling with the haunting glow of the lights. Panic surged through me. I needed to leave. I turned and ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps, but the lights followed me, swirling around my head like a pack of hungry wolves. Each step I took seemed to pull me deeper into the labyrinth of gravestones, the trees closing in, the fog thickening. I tripped over a stone, stumbling to the ground, my palms scraping against the cold earth. As I pushed myself to my feet, I saw it, the crypt. It was an old structure, partially obscured by ivy and brambles, its door slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to enter. I didn't want to go near it. My instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from the crypt as possible, but I had no choice. The lights were pulling me toward it, their glow now a blinding beacon in the dark. I stumbled toward the entrance, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside, the air was heavy, the darkness thick. I could barely see my hand in front of my face, but I knew that I wasn't alone. I could feel it. The presence in the room was overwhelming, suffocating. The lights flickered above me, casting long, twisted shadows on the walls. And that's when I saw it. A weathered stone slab sat at the center of the crypt, etched with the name Samuel Granger. My great-grandfather's name. I felt the blood drain from my face. I'd come here to uncover a mystery, but I hadn't realized the truth. This cemetery, these restless spirits, were part of my own bloodline. My great-grandfather had once been a grave digger here, and it was said he had met a violent end, murdered in the very place he had once worked. I had never known the details, only that his death had been shrouded in mystery. And now, it seemed the spirits of the cemetery were calling me, pulling me deeper into their realm. The lights hovered above the crypt, casting a cold glow over the stone slab. And that's when I heard it. The voice. Help me. It whispered, a familiar voice, the voice of my great-grandfather. I didn't understand. I reached out to touch the stone, my fingers trembling, and as I did, a jolt of cold coursed through me. The lights flared brighter, blinding me, and I screamed, trying to pull away, but it was too late. The last thing I remember was a camera in my hand, clicking one final picture, a blurry image of my terrified face surrounded by the glowing orbs, as though I had become part of the cemetery itself, another lost soul among the restless dead. The following morning, when the search party found me, my camera was the only thing left behind. The lens was cracked, the film inside exposed to the light. The final photo on the roll was a haunting image, my own face, wide-eyed with terror, surrounded by those glowing lights. And then, nothing. The locket lights had claimed me, and somewhere, deep in the heart of the cemetery, my great-grandfather's voice whispered to the wind, calling me home. The story begins as we approach the small town of Loma Alta, nestled between the towering Andes. I had heard the tales of its haunted cemetery for months, perhaps years, but never had I expected to find myself here, standing at the edge of the very place that had captured my curiosity. Loma Alta was a quiet, seemingly forgotten town, where the sound of a whisper could echo through the air for miles, where time itself seemed to have stalled under the weight of history and superstition. In the past, I had often dismissed these ghost stories as mere folklore, nothing more than the overactive imaginations of those two entrenched in the past. But tonight, my team and I were about to test the very fabric of these rumors. Mariana Cruz, our leader, had been a part of every investigation we conducted. Her knowledge of the paranormal was extensive, and her no-nonsense attitude made her both respected and feared within our group. This place is more than just a cemetery, she had warned as we set up our equipment near the iron gates. The locals speak of protectors, spirits that guard something deeper within these tombs. But remember, nothing is as it seems in Loma Alta. We need to be careful. The cemetery stood before us like something out of a forgotten dream, wrapped in fog, surrounded by ancient cypress trees that clawed at the sky. Even from the outside, there was an oppressive feeling about it, a sort of unnatural quiet that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. As we stepped closer, the smell of earth and decay thickened the air, the stone walls weathered and cracked, time having taken its toll. We had come to uncover the truth behind the strange disappearances of several local children. There had been whispers that the children weren't just lost. Some claimed they had been taken by spirits. Others said they had vanished into thin air. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that no one had seen them again, and that something dark was responsible for their absence. As we made our way deeper into the graveyard, our footsteps muffled by the fog, I could feel the weight of the place pressing down on us. Every corner seemed to hide some forgotten secret. Every gravestone telling a silent story of lives lost to time. Mariana led the way, her flashlight slicing through the dense mist ahead. My mind raced with questions. Why had the children vanished? Who or what was behind it all? But the answers were just out of reach, like a dream that was slipping away. Then, as we passed an old, crumbling mausoleum, the temperature suddenly dropped, and I could see my breath misty in front of me. The whisper came first, a soft sound, like a rustling of dry leaves. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but as I strained to listen, it became clearer. It wasn't the wind. It was words, faint and indistinct, as if someone or something was speaking in a language I couldn't understand. Mariana, her eyes narrowing, called out, "Who's there? Are you trying to tell us something?" Her voice broke the stillness, but the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, and soon the air around us seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, but also something else, something more primal, more ancient. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the mist. It wasn't the fog playing tricks on my eyes, either. No, this was something solid, something distinct, like a figure of a person. But it had no shape, no features to discern. It was as if the darkness itself had taken form and was watching us. I instinctively reached for the camera, my heart pounding in my chest. But before I could capture it, the figure vanished into the mist, as if it had never been there at all. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Did anyone else see that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mariana, too, was staring at the spot where the shadow had stood, her expression unreadable. The ground beneath us suddenly trembled. The earth shook violently for just a moment, enough to make us stumble and clutch at one another for balance. Then, with a sound like a thunderclap, a large tree, ancient and twisted, crashed to the ground, blocking the exit to the cemetery. Panic surged through me as I realized that we were trapped, and for the first time, fear gnawed at my insides. "Get the shovel. We need to dig through," someone shouted, but I barely heard it over the rising roar in my ears. We scrambled, our hands moving in a frantic blur as we tried to find a way out. But it was no use. The tree was too large, and the ground beneath us had become unnaturally firm. There was no escaping. We were stuck. And then, in the silence that followed, the whispering returned. Louder now, as if the voices were closing around us, rising from beneath the ground. The air grew thicker, colder, and I could feel something shift. The spirits we had come to investigate weren't angry. They weren't vengeful spirits, seeking revenge for some past wrong. No, they were protectors. At first, I didn't understand. But then I saw them, the children. They were there in the mist, playing, laughing, calling out in voices that echoed in the emptiness. I could see them running between the tombstones, their faces pale but serene. Their voices were soft, their laughter haunting, but it wasn't the laugh of ghosts trapped in torment. It was a sound of innocence, lost yet still clinging to the remnants of their lives. I could hear them now, clearer than before. "Help us," they whispered. "Help us before it's too late." And then, with a sharp, sudden crack, the ground split open before us. From within the fissure, a dark, musty air rose up, carrying with it the scent of rot and decay. We peered into the opening and saw what lay below, the hidden chamber buried beneath the cemetery for generations. Inside, the skeletal remains of a long-forgotten cult lay entombed, their bones twisted in unnatural positions, as though they had been buried alive in their final moments. Their faces, though skeletal, held expressions of madness. Their bodies had been buried as if in haste, as if the earth had been forced to conceal them quickly. The realization hit me like a cold wave. These were the culprits, the ones responsible for the disappearances. The cult had been sacrificing the children, offering them to some dark entity in exchange for power or immortality. But the spirits, the protectors of Loma Alta, had kept them from completing their dark rituals. They had been trying to save the children all along, keeping them hidden from the horrors that lurked beneath the earth. As we stood there, on the edge of the chamber, the whispering died down, and a sense of peace settled over the cemetery. The spirits had shown us the truth. and now they would guide us to safety. We left the cemetery that night, never to return. And though I still don't understand everything I witnessed, I know one thing for certain. The spirits of Loma Alta were not the vengeful ghosts the locals had feared. They were guardians, protectors of the innocent, and they had saved us from a darkness far worse than we could have imagined. I never told anyone what truly happened that night. Who would believe it? But deep down, I carried the knowledge of what I saw in that cemetery, and every time I close my eyes, I hear the whispers of the children, still calling out, still seeking help from beyond the grave. I will never forget them.